Good Thursday to you, everybody in Gov 710. Welcome to week boom 8. That is right. We are, is it official? We are right at smack in the middle of the semester. Ka-chow. Well, let's not only celebrate, but let's get things off on the right foot. Okay, with our trusty Great Smoky Mountains National Park Cup. Delicious. All right. Sorry, got a little on my lip there. Much better. Now I am here for you, your sufficiently caffeinated communication instructor, to talk to you about week 8. Apologies. I was looking back at the videos, going, "Geez, did I skip week 7 for some reason?" And I may have. Don't know what happened there. But we are now in the middle of the semester. Next week, week 9. No class, no readings, no questions. Please get outside. Get some. I mean, if you live somewhere where this is, you have any, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D. Right, it will do you good. All right, let's talk a little bit about the readings, your papers, and the next class presentation. So this week we're going to start looking at media from a non-Western perspective, and so we're working. We're reading from Thusis. So this collected works, really all of part 3, chapters 10 through 14. Excuse me, I have an H back here. Okay, and in those chapters, you're gonna get thoughts, essays on media in Asia, on media in Russia, on media that's gated in different ways than in the West. And as always, I want you to read with a critical eye. Don't just accept something because someone puts it down and it, ends up as a chapter in a textbook that lands in front of you for a class. Okay, so I want you to focus and wrestle with such fundamental questions as when we get into media in non-Western countries. One of the things we find, and there might be people who argument, you find it here too. We find varying levels of censorship, sometimes greater, sometimes lesser. I remember, for example, I was working in Turkey, and it's and I was in Istanbul, which is just a gorgeous city. I've been there 3-4 times. If you can get through there, I highly recommend it. But anyway, so I was in Istanbul, and the city was once called Constantinople, and it sits right on the Bosphorus Straits. That is the little bit of water that goes from the Black Sea and then empties out in the Mediterranean. And on the other side is Asia, and so that's the eastern side. On the western side is Eurasia, or the beginning of Europe. And there's a bridge that goes across that gap called the Galata Bridge. And if you go to Istanbul, which I recommend you do, and you go down to, the Galata Bridge on the city side, the western side, that's where the city is located. There are ships that go out into the Black Sea or down into the Mediterranean, and they fish, and they pull right up to the docks near the Galata Bridge. And some of these ships, they have grills, like flat top grills right on the ship. And so they're cleaning the fish as they're coming back from sea, and they're frying the fish on these grills. And you can buy the freshest, the most beautiful fish sandwiches, and they're typically served very simply with just lettuce and thinly sliced onion and salt. All right, and maybe some lemon. And you just, and the boat sort of bobbing there by the dock, and you hand somebody over their money, and they hand it to somebody on the ship, and they hand you this beautiful, fantastic fish sandwich. So I'm sitting down on the Bosphorus Straits near the Galata Bridge, And I'm obviously, I'm an American. I mean, I'm 6 foot. I'm 200 and something pounds. I kind of stand out. Okay, and this and I was there. I was doing a magazine story on a media figure. So I was hauling around some camera equipment. So I'm there with a camera bag, and I've been photographing in the city. And this guy walks up to me and he introduces himself and he starts talking to me. He said, "Oh, you're from America, and love it." And I said, "Well, hey, my name's Jeff Gardner. What's your name?" He said, "Well, my name is Sammy." And I said, "Oh, okay. Um, what do you do, Sammy?" And said, I'm a journalist. I'm an academic. I said, "What do you do?" "Well, and I'm not making this up. I sell seashells." I said, "Really? So where?" I said, "Oh, we have a company, but we have a shop just over here." I said, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. So you're telling me your name is Sammy and you sell seashells by the seashore?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so, not being a Westerner, he didn't have a clue as to what Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Maybe if it's not Sally, it's Sammy. He didn't have a clue as to what that was. And I said, "Oh, okay. Great. Nice to meet you." And he said, "But have you seen my city?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've been walking around." He said, "You haven't seen the city like I can show you the city. Let me give you a tour." And I thought, well, okay, I've got some time to kill. I'll go take a walk around. He seemed, he looked fairly harmless to me, so he did. He took me on just a fabulous tour of the city, and I really got to see it in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I just didn't know all the little spots like he did. And at the end of our walking tour, and we were out for a couple of hours, we ended up there's a commercial space between the Blue Mosque and the church, the fifth century church that was built under the supervision of the Emperor Justinian, Hagia Sophia, Lady of Wisdom. And there's a cafe there, very famous cafe called the Dervish. So if you go to Istanbul, all right, so more more notes to self. Go to the Dervish cafe between the Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia. I mean, go to Hagia Sophia and even go to the Blue Mosque. An amazing structure. Okay, so anyway, so it was Friday. We're walking. It's getting towards evening. We end up, because I had a hotel. Not my hotel was not far from there, at the Dervish Cafe between Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque, and it starts raining. And shortly after, and it's just pouring. Shortly after it starts raining, the call for Friday prayer goes out. Now, I don't know if any of you have spent any time in Islamic country, and anywhere near a mosque when the call for prayer goes out. But from the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, I mean, the call goes out, and it almost it like cuts through you. Uh, I mean, there's really something about it. Okay. And we're sitting there and we're drinking Turkish coffee and we're listening to this call for prayer, and the rain is pouring down. It was very atmospheric. And he said, "Isn't that beautiful?" And my guide was Muslim. I said, "Yeah, yeah, there's a certain beauty to that." And the central part of the call to prayer is God is great. Allahu Akbar. God is great. Which, for Christians in the Middle East, they use the word Allah to refer to God. I don't have any qualms with the idea. All right, God is great, because God certainly is great. But the question is, who's God? Okay. So, anyways, yeah, that does have a certain beauty to it. But Sammy, I said, but when I hear this, and this was, the Iraq War was still going on pretty hot then. I said, but when I hear this, I can't help but think of my countrymen who were killed, because there were, all these videos floating, surfacing on YouTube back in the day before YouTube actually screened a lot of stuff, much more heavily now than it did. So I can't help but think of my countrymen that are killed by terrorists who yell this phrase just before and after they killed them, Allahu Akbar. And he looked at me with this expression of bewilderment, surprise, and disgust. He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Who would do such a thing? Who would profane such the holy name of God and a call to worship him with an act of violence?" I mean, he really didn't believe me. And I said, "Sammy, baby, where have you been?" I said, "These videos are all over the place." He said, "I've never seen them." I said, "Here, look." And I pulled out my phone and I typed it in. And guess what came up? Absolutely nothing. And he's, he sort of looked at me like, and I thought, no, I'm telling you, man. And then, I changed the subject, and, I don't want to knock heads with someone that I just met. And I went back to my hotel and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And then I remember the government of Turkey screens quite heavily everything that comes in and out of the country by way of the internet. And so from Sammy, the seashell salesman's perspective, this stuff didn't exist. And I was this crazy American, who must have had a different call to prayer mixed up with the one that he loved as a devout Muslim. So you're going to look at questions of censorship. You're going to look at questions of why media in some venues has not, sort of come into its own as media study. But I want you to look at it critically. So, for instance, one of the questions I'm going to ask you is about censorship. And I think one of the germane, fundamental questions is, in a media environment, do people have a right to say, we don't want to see that? That is, do they have a right to censorship? And I'm not saying that they do. All right. I'm throwing that question out. I want you to tell me, do you think that they do? Okay. Likewise, you're gonna read an article in that part 3, Struggles for International Legitimacy. Okay. In which the author is going to talk about Asian media studies. All right. And he'll assert how Western models of what is and is not media has prevented Asian media studies for coming to age and sort of establishing itself on the international stage. Okay, fair enough. But I want you to think about the nature of the media environment in the places in which media studies are not widely adopted and or practiced. And ask the question, is it because of Western hegemony, or is it because, and I'm not going to give it away, I want you to think about this, or is it because of other factors that you don't find a lot of media studies in some of these Asiatic countries, like countries on this continent? Okay. And then finally, there's one of the articles that, and you not so much in communication studies, but sometimes you'll read authors and you have to wonder, are you really getting at something, or are you using a series of buzzwords and catchphrases to get a paper published? And I'm serious about that. So there's one of these articles that I want you to be able to explain back to me. What in the world is the author getting at? And if you think that what this author is getting at is a bunch of nothing, tell me. Okay. All right. That's the readings for this week. Okay. So I'm not quite finished with your papers. I should be finished by middle of modular week or spring break or whatever you want to call it. Normally it's a week turnaround. My apologies. I need about a week and a half. All right. If you get a note on your paper saying, hey, let's talk, please do reach out to me. This is, this is, nobody's in trouble. It means that I see some things that you're doing or that you're not doing that you could do more of or that you should do less of for the second part of the paper. And remember how the assignment works. All right. If you go up in score on the second part of the paper when you complete it, I'll raise the score that you got on the first. So let's just say, hypothetically, you get like an 80 on part one. You go, yeah, okay. And the reason you got an 80, and I'll be very, very clear with you, I say, yeah, don't do this, don't do this, do a little bit more of that, and don't do this. When you complete part two, which is the rest of the paper, so I'm not doing two papers, when it's the rest of the paper, you fix that stuff and you don't do it again, all right? Then let's say instead of an 80, you got a 93 on part two. I'll take that 80 and turn it into a 93. Why? We're always hearing and we're always saying writing is rewriting, which it is. Writing is a process, which it is. Research is a process, which it is. So let's make it a process, and a process that I am here to help you get better at, better as a researcher, better as a writer. And, as you develop, that's going to be reflected in the evaluation of your work. Seems fair? Okay. All right. And lastly, if you will go into the assignments tab, on the left side in Canvas, you're going to see your second class presentation. It's due on the 14th of March. Like the first one, it's worth 100 points. Now, like for this one, the last time you could pick any international media, anything. Some of you picked, one on sharks, very interesting. Okay. This one, I want you to look specifically at international religious media enterprises. And what religion? That's up to you. But here's the one caveat. They have to have an international presence. Okay. And if they don't, then it doesn't qualify. Can't use them. Okay. All right, everybody. If you have questions, as always, send me an email. Otherwise, work on those second class presentations. On the, the 14th of March. So you really won't have to, I don't want to have you work, or I'm not going to give you anything to work on over modular week, right? So take some time off, go outside, get some vitamin D, fresh air, spend time in a green space. All right. You'll be better for it. Okay, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Remember that I think about you, I pray about you, and I will see you on the other side. No readings, no assignments, no videos. I'll see you on the other side of Modular Week. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.